May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be always acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen. Please be seated. So it wasn't long ago we had a gospel lesson that centered around a pool in Jerusalem. And that pool was the pool of Siloam, into which a tower fell and killed 18 people. Now the gospel today is also centered on a pool, this one with a much happier outcome. An interesting side note is that both these pools were thought by historians to be nothing more than fictional literary devices until the late 19th century, when both were discovered exactly where and exactly as they're described in the Gospels. So the pool today has a bit of an identity crisis. The pool is called Bethzatha, Bethesda, or Bethsaida, depending on which translation you're reading from. And this confusion of naming goes further than pronunciation, though, because whichever way you pronounce it, it translates in Hebrew as the pool of mercy or grace, except for the fact that in Hebrew, it also means the pool of shame or disgrace. The way people used the pool is also a bit muddled. It seems it was used as a mikvah for Jewish ritual cleansing, but also as part of the neighboring temple of Asclepius, a Roman god of healing. Even the language of the gospel is debated when it comes to this pool. In the earliest version, the paralyzed man's statements about the water being stirred up are left without any comment or explanation. However, in later versions, an addition was made stating that once in a while an angel would come down and disturb the waters, and whoever got in first would be healed. Now, it seems, depending on which side you were on, there was a bit of a problem for the faithful going to outsiders, the Romans, for healing. So some editors tried to explain it away by saying it was actually an angel that came down and did the healing. So there are two parts to this story that really intrigue me. The first is why the man went to the pool, and the second is why he had to wait there for 38 years. A few questions immediately present themselves when thinking about why the man went to the pool for healing. First off, if he was paralyzed, how did he get there? He's at the point where he cannot get into the pool by himself, but he was able to get to the pool every day for 38 years. Did he have friends or relatives that carried him there each day? Did he ask to go to the pool and not to the temple in Jerusalem for healing? Was this pool an ancient version of a senior center? The healing was not really important as long as the guy had a place to be all day while everyone else had to go to work. Now, these are just practical questions. If we start to look at it deeper, we start seeing theological implications. If this man chose to go to the pool and the Roman temple of healing, what was his faith in God like? Was he even Jewish? Now, the passage ends with a statement, that day was a Sabbath. So if we continue reading in John, it becomes important that it was a Sabbath, because the next line says, the Jews therefore said to him who was cured, it is a Sabbath, it is not lawful for you to carry your bed. So this at least gives us the answer to one question. The man is beholden to Jewish law and the restrictions of a Sabbath. But this makes the question of why the man went to the pool instead of the temple even more important. So if we move to others in the situation, we're confronted with still more questions. So questions like, why did it take 38 years of waiting for this man to be healed? Surely after that long, someone would help him get into the pool at the right time and receive its healing. Or maybe not. Maybe everyone was so focused on their own problems that all they cared about was being the first in the pool themselves. Something that I'm sure is completely foreign to our modern culture. Or maybe his plight was ignored because to the Romans at the pool, he was an outsider, not worthy of their notice, let alone their help. though he is hardly better treated by his fellow Jews. After all, what is the welcome he receives when he shows up healed and carrying his bed? "You can't do that. It's the Sabbath." No celebration of his healing. No astonishment that after 38 years the man's walking. No, he's met with condemnation and a rebuke. Maybe this explains why he was at the Roman pool seeking healing instead of the temple. So, in the Godly Play Sunday school curriculum, we always end our stories with a set of questions that we call wondering questions. We ask the kids things like, "I wonder what your favorite part was. I wonder what the most important part was. I wonder what part of the story is just for you." For this gospel, I would ask, "I wonder which person you are in the story. Are you one of the Romans at the pool, ignoring the man's plight for 38 years, focused only on your own healing, maybe pushing to the front to help a family member get in? Are you one of the Jews, shaming the man because he's carrying his bed on a Sabbath, focused only on the letter of the law, completely ignoring the miracle that is his healing? Maybe you're the paralyzed man, afflicted and hurting, seeking anywhere for relief, even if it means going to the same pagan temple every day for 38 years. I know we would all like to say that we're like Jesus, helping the man who is ignored and crippled, encouraging him to stand up, take your mat and walk. The truth is that we're all a lot closer to a combination of the first three than we'd care to admit. Seeking healing and comfort from any source, consumed by our own pain to the point of being blinded to that of others. Can we see through that to find ways to be like Jesus, to offer hope and healing to others, even in the face of our own pain? Or are we stuck like the paralyzed man, unable to help others, let alone ourselves? In my spiritual formation class at seminary, each of the students had to teach a spiritual practice to the class. Some people led sessions on reading scriptures, prayer, or doing self-examination. Others brought in crayons and colored pencils, or literally a bucket full of leaves and rocks. Each of these practices was important and useful to the person who taught them, but maybe not so useful to everyone. It was not just a matter of enjoying the practices. I have done some spiritual practices that I enjoy immensely, but are not spiritually fulfilling, while others are challenging and spark major growth. There are some practices taught that others found very fulfilling, but in which I could have spent 38 years practicing and found no spiritual benefit. And this is the tough part. Each of us needs to seek God in our own way. But how do we do that and still remain part of the whole? How can we go to that Roman temple and still remain faithful to the laws given us? Can we seek individually inside the framework of a church? Can we find God in our own way while others around us are searching in theirs? While I would not suggest that we all head down to the Roman temple and expect to find Jesus, that's exactly what the gospel illustrates today. Jesus came and found the man where he was. Jesus didn't care it was just outside a pagan temple. He didn't care it was the Sabbath. Jesus knew what John saw in his visions on Patmos. God wasn't only in the temple. In fact, in the New Jerusalem, there would be no temple. Echoing Ezekiel's visions from the Old Testament, John saw a river flowing out of the temple, spreading out through the streets. A river of water that was life. It was purity and it was healing. There was no need to sit for 38 years and wait for an angel to stir up the water. There was only to enter it. Now, lest we be too presumptuous, it's not an easy thing. The river is flowing, and the current could carry a person away. But in the midst of that river stands the Lamb, Jesus, leading us towards the source. Fight upstream, seek him, and all sin will be washed away. Those that conquer will be marked with God's own name on their foreheads and will reign with him. Just think of that. It says they will reign with him forever and ever. Not just abide with him, not live, not simply be in God's presence, but reign with him. This is what waits at the head of that stream. If the paralyzed man can endure waiting at the pool of Bethesda for 38 years, what can you do? Can you be the Romans and the Jews and the paralyzed man all at once? Can you overcome your own afflictions to seek out Jesus and be sought by him? Can you find Jesus when you're sick? Can he find you when you're angry, depressed, jealous? Jesus can find us anywhere. In church, in the temple, at a pool dedicated to the Roman god Asclepius. Anywhere. If Jesus can find us in these places, can we find him there as well? The New Testament lesson says the Lamb is a lamp sent to lead us, but it requires us to follow, to seek him out. If we expect to stand still, the river will carry us away. Don't get caught waiting for the waters to stir up, to be sitting there on the sidelines for 38 years waiting for someone to help you down. Look yourself for the lamp. Look for Jesus. Be ready to meet him anywhere and everywhere you are. Seek him out, and he will find you. Amen.